Thank the Most High. We thank the Most High too for blessing us to be able to pull this together as fast as we pulled it together. We just ask that the recording goes according to plan, and that we get all the information that the Most High wants us to cover, and that it reaches the right people, reaches the people that need to hear it, and is effective.
Welcome to the all-new Kingdom Mandate podcast. We address biblical principles that promote the kingdom of God and how they apply to our everyday lives at home, at work, and in the community. You're about to join our hosts, Pastor Reggie Davis and Derrick Turner, for an uplifting time of teaching, conversation, and empowerment. Thank you for tuning in. Join us weekly and invite a friend. Be blessed and welcome.
All right, so welcome to the Kingdom Mandate Podcast. We're your host pastors. I am Derrick Turner.
I'm Pastor Reggie Davis.
And I am Minister Andrea Cummings. And today we are going to have our special guest by the name of Mrs. Krystal Singleton, who is joining us with a powerful, powerful story and testimony. So we are going to be interviewing her and just talk about her family life, which is going to include the background of her husband. So we're going to have an interesting podcast today. So I hope you all enjoy what we have coming forth. Miss Krystal. Krystal.
Welcome, Krystal.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And so, Krystal, I guess we're just going to jump right into what our podcast is going to be about this evening. And what the podcast is going to be about this evening is mainly talking about your husband and the diagnosis that you guys got for him in 2008. So I just want to let you take the floor and tell us about that diagnosis and what it was.
Yes, my husband was diagnosed with dementia in 2008. Dementia is a non-cure illness. They have no cure for that. It affects usually two or more functions of the brain. It causes memory loss and impairment or judgment. And usually the two that it affects. My husband have you call boxers dementia, which is like the frontal lobe. It affects the frontal lobe. My husband was a professional boxer in the early 80s. And so he was a professional there. And so they contributed his dementia to the boxing. But in 2006, he had a real bad car wreck. He hit his head, was one of the injuries that he had. And that was like the last blow. He started realizing that he was losing memory. I didn't notice it. He would ask me things a couple of times over, but it never triggered anything in my mind. But in 2008, Dr. LaBruce, we were seeing him in Charleston, South Carolina. And he told me, he said, something is wrong with your husband. He told me that in March of 2008. And I said, nothing is wrong with my husband. My husband goes to work. He was a teacher, the Ladies Island Middle School. And, he was a behavior management specialist, a licensed social worker, worked in the school system. Nothing's wrong with my husband. He works with kids, and he was like, and I'm like, he's teaching kids. He says, I don't know what he's teaching because something is wrong. He comes to my office and I don't want him to come back no more by himself because he don't remember anything I tell him. And so that was when Caleb was born January. He was telling me this in March. So I really went to the restroom and I started having panic attacks because immediately I thought, my husband's gonna die. I didn't know what to think was wrong.
Okay.
And of course we came back to Beaufort. I contacted my husband primary doctor, and I said, Dr. LaBuse that we see is saying something's wrong with my husband. So of course she scheduled a CAT scan. My husband went to a place by himself because I was still working full time, and he walked in, looked at the machine, and walked out. He never took the test.
Wow.
And when I realized, when the doctor contacted me to tell me he never took the test, I met up with his siblings and I asked them to help me get him to the CAT scan, to get a CAT scan. And so that's what they did. And when it came back, it showed that he was having atrophy of the brain. That means his brain was shrinking.
Okay. So now let me ask you this then. You mentioned that in 2006 he had a bad car accident, right?
Yes.
Now, at what point, when he had the accident up till 2008, because that's when he was actually diagnosed, right?
Yes.
Now, when did this happen, as far as you taking him or him going to the doctor himself and he walked away? Was that in 2008 or was that 2007?
That was in 2008. My husband, up until 2008, my husband hadn't seen a doctor in 15 years. My husband was a vegetarian.
Okay.
And when I married him, he was a vegan for 16 years.
Okay.
So he didn't necessarily believe in doctors. My husband traveled the world, been to Russia, Africa multiple times. He never took the shots and stuff. He just didn't believe in that.
Sure.
And so all of this kind of came to a head in 2008. And so I started pursuing doctors and taking him to, getting psyche valves and taking him to get tested and all these things. Once they told me that, to just, my husband is a college graduate, and he is a licensed social worker. Okay. But when I took him to be tested, he was tested on a 7th grade level. That's how much brain function he lost.
Wow.
Now I wanted to
in 2008.
Wow.
Ask you about something that you said. You said that they attributed his dementia to his profession. Can you just know again what the profession was?
My husband was a professional boxer. His first manager was Joe Frazier. Most people know him in Philadelphia. He trained Holyfield in the first fight with Mike Tyson. My husband was a boxer. He was a 17-0 profession fighter before he got a detached retina. And he came home in the late 80s and he opened up the gym, continued to teach boxing because that was his passion. He loved that along with teaching. So in the evening, he taught kids and trained them. So he bought a gym, opened it up, and continued that until 2008. He just didn't even remember the boxing too much. Wow. Some days he would go, and I would ask him, why you don't, because he was faithful. He would go to the gym every day, whether kids showed up or not. And I said, why are you not going to the gym? He said, well, because Caleb was born, our son was born, he wanted to spend more time, but that really wasn't so. What it is, he didn't necessarily remember to go.
Oh, wow.
But he told me, so I didn't catch on until 2013. Because even though we were going to doctors, because of the Privacy Act, he never wanted me to go in the office with him.
Oh, okay.
So when he went in and one of the neurologist's assistant met with him, and she had diagnosed, read the CAT scan and all of that. But he never told me, and I didn't think to ask. I mean, I got a little baby. Sure. If you went into the office by yourself, you came out, you can take care of yourself. You're a grown man. I didn't think no more about it until 2013. So you're talking about you know,
5 years.
5 years later,
Right.
when I went to the
Wow.
neurologist and
Okay.
I with him and said, hey, and he was like, well, my PA diagnosed him in 2008. And I'm like, but I never got the information, you know, because he never wanted me. They would always ask him, do you want your wife here? And he would say no. So
Okay.
I had to leave what I was going to do,
Sure,
you know.
right. So
And
from
so
okay,
Here.
yeah. So from 2008 to 2013, he was
Mhm.
declining daily or however, but he was declining, and so
every day, every
day.
because he didn't have no treatment. You know,
Right.
they
No
have
medicine. Right. No, nothing.
You know, they have medicine they can give you to slow it up, you know, or but he remember, he was a man who never took medicine, never
Right.
wanted to be treated.
Right.
So,
Right.
Okay.
So
And then-
what point did you notice something that was in him that said, okay, I need to go to the doctor with my husband? Or
well, I went to the doctor with him after Dr. Labuse and all of that, and I would go to the doctor with him, but I never was able to go into the
Go
treatment
in.
room.
in the treatment room. Okay.
Yes, and so
you did
when
see
the
some signs that he was exhibiting some type of behavior that you knew that was not normal.
well, what happened is when Dr. Labuse told me that something was wrong,
Mhm.
you know, remember I went into this panic saying my husband's gonna die. So I went on this pursuit to find a cure. And it wasn't, and it was, for me, it wasn't until 2015 that I came to a place where I said, okay, I accepted that there was no cure for him. Because, you know, we went to Vanderbilt. We went and lived in Kentucky for 2 months so he could be treated at Vanderbilt, which
Wow.
is one of the #1 hospitals.
Sure.
And so we, you know, in conversations with my family, because every year we would travel to Kentucky, and, you know, my husband displayed schizophrenic, he's displayed, you know, just mental illness, which dementia and Alzheimer is a mental illness because it affects the brain,
Sure.
you know. And so I got him a specialist in Vanderbilt, and it's like, and finally, after coming back to South Carolina and traveling back to Vanderbilt, which is 10-hour, 11-hour drive just for his treatment, and the doctor there, the second doctor, not the first doctor, not Dr. Baladon, but the second doctor, she says, there's no need for you to come all the way here because there's no, she just kind of said, it's no treatment. And I finally at that point accept, okay, if you're going to be cured, it's going to have to be God, because there's no cure for what you have.
Right.
So that's why I say that it's a process for the loved one and the caregiver, because it's like denial.
Right.
Okay, acceptance.
Right.
Okay, let's settle in. This is what I like.
Right. This
Wow.
is what we're dealing with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
So
listen.
and there's so many other components into that. It's not just, you know, denial, acceptance. This is where we are. I went through different stages of, you know, getting to the place I am today.
Sure. Well, listen, we really appreciate the fact that you have come on to share this story with us, because it's deeply personal. I mean, we're talking about, you know, your husband. And how long have you all been married?
15 years.
15 years. And so that's, you know, definitely a deeply personal experience here. We've got to go to break. But when we come back, what I want to do is because we talked about kind of what the early warning signs were. And we kind of want to dig a little bit deeper into, you know, what a person should be looking for in terms of early warnings, and then also talk about maybe the progression from 2008 until now. And so when we come back from break, we kind of want to hop into that. We're going to take a break very quickly. This is the Kingdom Mandate Podcast. I'm Pastor Derrick Turner.
I'm Pastor Reggie Davis.
And I'm Minister Andrea Cummings.
We're here with our guest, Krystal Singleton. We're so glad to have you. We will be right back after this word from our sponsor.
Thank you.
Kingdom Mandate Ministries needs your involvement to aid in our mission to better serve our community. We have a number of support initiatives, and your donations help us further our mission to provide resources for disabled and retired veterans, life skills coaching, and to raise mental illness awareness. Your tax-deductible gift to Kingdom Mandate Ministries can be made by visiting our website at www.kingdommandateministries.com and clicking Donate. There you will be able to choose your level of support and the initiative you'd like to sponsor. We would like to thank our many partners for your generous support.
We're back from the break, and we are still with Mrs. Krystal Singleton. And again, I am Minister Andrea Cummings.
Pastor Derrick Turner.
I'm Pastor Reggie Davis.
And we are talking to Mrs. Krystal Singleton about her husband and his mental health challenges of being diagnosed with dementia. Mm-hmm. So starting from there, I want to talk about what was his progression like from being diagnosed in 2008 up until now.
Yeah.
My husband, there's stages to dementia. There's 5-7 different stages of dementia. When my husband was diagnosed in 2008, my husband was walking, talking, still driving. He was still doing that, but full of fear, full of anxiety, full of depression, full of just really a schizophrenic personality. It gives that impression that he's a schizophrenic, but he had dementia.
Describe that schizophrenic personality for me. Let's describe
schizophrenic personality, paranoia, thinking people are trying to hurt you and that kind of stuff. And so my husband had what you call sundown. That's part of dementia. It's where he's sleeping all day on and off, but he's up all night, peeping out the window. Now I'm sleeping.
Sure.
I wasn't even aware he was doing that, wow. Because I'm sleeping, because I'm getting up at 5 o'clock, leaving the house at 6 to be at work at 6:30, that kind of thing. So I wasn't aware in the early stages that was going on with him. By 2009 and 10, he was full of anger at this point, angry because, he can't work, because of his can't return back to work, because they would send him kids and he would give them a basketball to go play. He couldn't get the reports together. As a teacher, you have reports. You have to do your lesson plan. He just couldn't fulfill the requirements. And so by 2008 of May, that was his last. So by 2009 and 10, he's angry. He wants so bad for his son to see him work. He's going through that stage. He's fearful. He's thinking, his paranoia was to the point where he's thinking, whenever I go out, I'm going out to see someone, and just he's thinking his cousin that he's close to, he's telling me he wants to buy a gun, and he's thinking I've hired people to kill him. And so he's going through all this stuff. And so once we got to that place, then by 2015 of October, he's full blown now. He's full blown. I remember one Sunday getting up and at this point I'm dressing him because he's not able to dress himself. He's still able to go take a shower by himself, but it's like I'm dressing him his clothes, helping him a lot at this point. But I remember one Sunday morning and I said to him, I said, Charles, don't step. We have a little poodle. And I said, he was in his box and I said, don't step in there. You're going to step in Pork Chop's urine and your socks is going to get wet, and I have to change them and wipe your feet and do all of that again. And so I don't know what went on in his head, but he got angry, and I'm ironing my clothes. I done got Caleb dressed. Caleb is, only, at this point, Caleb is only 7 years old. I done got his clothes ready for church, and I'm ironing my clothes, and he got so mad. And he went to go hit me in the face, and I just backed up, and he started choking me. And I just came real still, just very calm, very still, because with dementia patient, it's always important to change their mind. So if their mind is focused on something, it's to distract them and put it on something else. Because 30 minutes later, they don't even remember what they've done.
Wow.
And so, and at this point, Caleb witnessed that, and so on a Sunday morning, I had to call the police. They were like, well, we're going to take him to the hospital, try to get him on different medication, that kind of thing. And at that point, they end up transporting him to Charleston MUSC. They put him in the psych ward. And normally they keep you for seven days. They kept him for 2 months. And they tried different medications, and they told me, they said, you know what, we don't suggest him coming home because we can't convince him that there's not a man in your closet and he's there to protect you. He says there's a man in our closet, he's there to protect me and to harm him. And he said we can't convince him any different. So we suggest that he goes to a facility. So they sent him to McClellanville, which was 2 hours away. So 3 days a week, I'm driving 2 hours one way, 2 hours back with a 7-year-old I have to drop off to school to, so that it was a process, but he was still able to dress himself, but he just didn't remember. It's like 30 minutes later, he didn't remember what happened. So they put him in a room by himself because he was with other men in the house or in the facility that had mental issues too, but they could remember, and but they had mental issues, and so that was hard, and when I went there to visit, he tried to bust out the car window, turn over the car. He was very, very strong. It doesn't matter if they're a little man, a big man, a little woman, a big woman. If they have that component of combatantness, they can be very strong.
Sure.
Very strong. Sure. So that was the process from 2008 to 2015. And then we tried to bring him back home, but then, we brought him back home, and then he tried to, anybody that maybe their voice or yell that wasn't calm, it would just irritate him. And then that means you were going to have to contend with him possibly trying to beat you up, so it happened with his sister. So he's back in the hospital again. And so they got him to, another facility, got him to Utahville. And so I would go up there 3 days a week. Finally got Alzheimer's, hospice to go in to help him because he just didn't remember to take a bath or anything, and I could only get there 3 days a week, and that was an hour and a half away. So that was around 2016, and then he was in 3 other places. He was in Ridgeland Nursing Home for rehabilitation. He beat up 2 men, said one of them had a gun. So it's just that kind of paranoia. So we went through many facilities, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have to move to a whole nother state because I didn't want him that far away from me. And I didn't want him in what you would call an institution for the mentally insane, because those men were sometimes criminals, and sometimes they had memory and stuff like that. And that wasn't Charles's situation. He was combatant, but he had dementia. And so he would have been defenseless in many situations. So, and even though he was with medication, from 2013, when I finally realized the situation, up until this point, it was like the medicine just wasn't working for him. So now we don't give him any medication because once he gets to a certain stage, the medicine don't work
Don't want
anyway.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
present day, is he mobile? Is he able to walk? Is he?
No, today my husband is bedridden and he's on a feeding tube. So he don't eat anything by mouth. He can't walk. But God is awesome. I say that because there's times where I went in his room and he's done sit up by himself. So I had to put rails on the bed. During the pandemic, it was like he was sitting up by himself. A couple of times I find him on the floor because he's done tried to stand up.
okay.
And that kind of thing. So now, I have rails. They in the hospital, they don't tend to like you to have rails around the bed. But we're in my own personal home facility. So, I do what works for my husband
Your situation
and to protect him.
Gotcha.
So what kind of care or team does he need at this point? Is there like social workers coming in or techs coming in to help you with him? And if so, how did you find out about those resources?
Well, my husband is at the stage of what we would call a full skill care. He typically would be in a nursing home for the kind of care he needs. I went back to school in right before the pandemic of January to PCL to become a CNA certified to take care of him at the level he needed. And so the people that come in my home, I train, so, I train them based on what I've learned in class and school or whatever. And so we have, we have nurses come in once a week, home health nurse come in once a week to check. And so I went back to school because I needed to be able to communicate. What I've learned is in every area of life, there is, you have to learn how to communicate on that level, and so I went back to learn how to communicate with the doctors and the nurses. Once a month, a nurse practitioner comes in. Once a month, a doctor calls me. I have to order all his feeding tube. Like today, like yesterday, one of the workers, punched the wrong knob to his feeding tube. And I told her, I said, go on home, we'll figure it out, tomorrow. We'll just let it run the way it's running. In the morning, I know we have a doctor's appointment. So I got up as I'm traveling, taking him to the doctor with the transportation. I called and said, hey, this is what we got going on with the machine. I ended up figuring it out myself by calling the 1-800 number doing a troubleshooting. So I had to learn how to work the machines that you see in the hospitals, because of the feeding tube, transportation. I have to schedule all his transportation. I do all his doctor's appointments, even though we have people come in and out. So I actually, have a team of people. I have a lady come in the morning from 8 to 11. I have another lady come from 4 to 8. Based on my schedule, I have a calendar. I'll show you here. I have many calendars. Calendar where I write down all the scheduling, and I just tell them, if you have to be off from work, just let me know and we'll work it around. I'll do the appointments around everybody, and so everybody just let me know what they got to do, and then and that's what we do. Typically, every weekend I'm the only staff. I had a staff coming in from 8 to 1 on Saturday. But that's kind of hard to feel, people want their weekends and all over the world, we're in a situation where a lot of people just don't want to work. So, and I've just partnered up with transportation so that my husband would always have transportation to his appointments. Because a couple of times I had to transport him in my vehicle. I have an Odyssey, but still with that van, that means I had to take the lift and the wheelchair. So, I would be misleading if I said I did it by myself. And I have a team, and I've partnered up with people. And then they have the Alzheimer's support group. You know, in the early stages when my husband was walking, I would partnered up with Alzheimer's support group. So on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, he would go to a church for 4 or 5 hours, which would give me a break, you know. And so they have that all over. It doesn't matter what state you're in. You can find the Alzheimer's organization, and they have like where they take care of your loved ones for that 4 or 5 hours, you know. And then they have like on Wednesday, I would take him to the church, and then they would do games or whatever with them and feed them or whatever. And then I could go and be a part of a support group of other people who were taking care of their loved ones, caregivers. And I would learn from them, you know, and they would tell me their experience. Like I was talking about earlier, if we had a roadmap, the roadmap is the person who went before you.
Okay.
That's your roadmap.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I apologize because we're trying to stick on a schedule, and so I've got to take us to another break. But one of the things that I just wanted to say really quickly, Krystal, is that I think that's absolutely amazing that you were willing to go back to school and become a CNA for the specific purpose, not of actually going out and getting a job as a CNA, but to be able to take care of your loved one at home. I think that's absolutely amazing, an amazing testament to the level of love and care that you're giving to your home and to your family and to your husband. And actually, when we come back from break, that's I think what we're going to get into is talk about the family dynamic a little bit and kind of how these challenges have affected your family dynamics. So this is the Kingdom Mandate Podcast. I'm Pastor Derrick Turner.
I'm Pastor Reggie Davis.
And I'm Minister Andrea Cummings.
And we are going to take a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back with you.
Kingdom Mandate Ministries needs your involvement to aid in our mission to better serve our community. We have a number of support initiatives, and your donations help us further our mission to provide resources for disabled and retired veterans, life skills coaching, and to raise mental illness awareness. Your tax-deductible gift to Kingdom Mandate Ministries can be made by visiting our website at www.kingdommandateministries.com and clicking Donate. There you will be able to choose your level of support and the initiative you'd like to sponsor. We would like to thank our many partners for your generous support.
All right, so we're back on the Kingdom Mandate Podcast, and I'm Pastor Derrick Turner.
Yes, I'm Pastor Reggie Davis.
And I'm Minister Andrea Cummings.
And we are talking with Krystal Singleton here, and who has been so gracious to share her story with us with regard to us bringing awareness to mental health issues. And so, Andrea, I'm gonna give you the floor back, and let's just keep the conversation going.
Yes.
And one question that I wanted to ask you, Krystal, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but you said that you have a son. So I wanted you to kind of talk to us about the family dynamics and what are some of those challenges that you have with your husband having dementia and raising your son?
Well, Caleb, the year my husband was diagnosed was the year Caleb was born. So in the first 4 years, it was normal for our son because they were like at the same age at the same time. But then my son started growing to be 5, 6, 7, and he wanted to just ride his bicycle, but his dad was paranoid. And so he could even ride his bicycle on the sidewalk. And so, you know, I remember telling my son one day he had a bicycle that his uncle brought him for Christmas, and he was on the sidewalk, and his dad just took him up, and I thought his dad was going to really hurt him just because he was afraid that someone would steal him. He was always afraid someone was going to steal Caleb, or Caleb was going to get hit by a car, even though he was on the sidewalk. And I remember telling my son, I said, Caleb, you know, I said, we are not like other people. I said, because he didn't understand why he couldn't ride his bicycle on the sidewalk. I said, you have to remember, we are different, you know, and we're not like other people. I said, but don't worry, you'll get to ride someday. Just come in the house, you know, Daddy is afraid and he don't want you to ride. So there was a lot of things that our son was probably isolated where other kids were just free, you know.
How did he handle that when you told him that, you know, you're different and, you know, someday you'll be able to ride? How did he take that?
Well, he just came in because, I mean, my husband shook him up real hard, and he was like only 5 or 6, and I was afraid. It was like, you know, Caleb, you know, Caleb later, like now tells me, he says, Mom, you know what? I was afraid of you, you know, and you know, and I'm like, you know, his dad was wonderful, you know, and he was like, oh, I'm like my dad. My dad is wonderful. Because his dad was so close. I would be at home and I would be cooking because I had to do his breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I was managing the house, you know, ever since 2012, because I was home every day except for Thursday and Friday in 2012. At 2014, I came home full time. So I was always, I remember telling God, I said, you know what? I wish I could just go out with them. So they would go to the playground. They would do everything together. But I had to stay home because I had to make sure he got his medicine on time, make sure food was cooked. I had to make sure everything was running smoothly so we could have a peaceful day, you know, because anything was off, it could trigger him. I remember Caleb had to go back to school January. You know, you have your Christmas break and then they go back in January. Well, I realized Caleb needed shoestrings for his shoes. And I said, okay, they're eating dinner at the table. And I told him and Charles, I said, I'm gonna run to the Dollar General store right across the bridge, grab some shoestrings for tomorrow. It's late, you know. And next thing I know, I got a phone call from my sister-in-law. And she says, well, Charles called me because he's upset and blah, blah, blah. And what is he talking about? And I said, I don't know. When I left, they were eating dinner. I just went to go get shoestrings. But he would tell them that I would leave. He don't know where I'm gone. And I stay gone. And I'm going with the men around the corner. And he just had all this paranoia. So it was just always that going on. So we were, you know, I guess I was naive to a certain extent, not knowing the level of his mental decline when it came to that. Because I remember laying on the couch during that time. I had fell asleep, laid on the couch, and I woke up and he was standing over me with a baseball bat, getting ready to hit me in the head. He didn't know who I was. And so I yelled out his name, and he just started cussing because I shocked him. And so that was the day that I took all the baseball bats out of the house and asked the neighbors. They were Caleb's baseball bats from playing. His cousin gave it to him. But, you know, so Caleb, you know, there were situations where I had to remove all his baseball bats, you know, and I gave them to the neighbor, and I said, I'll come back and get them, you know, when things calm down, you know. So a lot of things, but if you don't know, you don't know. So in a child's situation, he only knows what you teach him and what you raise him. So he didn't really miss certain things because he never really was allowed to do it in the first place. You kind of stop it in the first place so it won't be trauma to him. So he thinks his dad is great, you know.
Good.
You know,
That's
so
good.
it's mom that you know he's hard on.
I
get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually,
So now,
I can attest to that a little bit. You know, just even in my own experience with my 2 children, because they've never been trick-or-treating in their lives. And when Halloween comes around every year, there's never a question of why can't we buy a costume and why can't we go get candy, and that never happens because they've never had that.
Never experienced it.
Never experienced it. So they never even, it doesn't even occur as a thought.
Right.
Yeah.
To do.
Yeah.
Now here's a question, Krystal. When Charles was standing over you with baseball bat, right? Now I know you mentioned at one point you all were getting ready on a particular Sunday, I think back in 2008, he choked you, right? But then you said 2017, I want to say, that's when he was standing over you with a baseball bat, correct?
In 2017, he was in different facilities.
Okay.
So this was like in 2015. All these major events happened in 2015.
Okay.
In October of 2015 was when he choked me, but in the early part of the year it was the baseball bat. So there was different events that were taking place. But I some people get it quickly and some people get it slowly.
Okay.
And so I didn't necessarily, it was like when 2015 happened, I kept trying to fix the situation, try to, it's like, okay,
Yeah,
because it's a couple of times I've had to call the police on him. Because one time, he had a knife. And so I had to get rid of all the knives. No one told me not to have sharp stuff in the house until after it happened.
Okay.
And so even the support group said, you can't stay in that situation. And I'm thinking, well, it's nothing wrong. What I'm gonna do, that kind of thing.
So so here's the question then for those that are listening. For you, Krystal, what was the turning point for you where you said, you know what, okay, I got to deal with this, not only with myself, but I've got to deal with my husband, I got to deal with my son, but I've got to really, really make a change, because otherwise I can only imagine if you don't make that change, if you don't turn that corner, it'll just swallow you up, it'll consume you, right? So what year do you think you said, okay, I've got to do something and I've got to do it right now, because this is real and I got to get some form of control of, what's going on?
To tell you the truth, Pastor Reggie, it's 2015, the doctors made the decision for me.
Okay.
And I was still trying to figure out how to bring him back, because what I knew and what I know today is that, or what I believe, and I don't know how much of what I've just told myself, but I believe that no one could. He's been in many facilities, and every facility I went to, and it's been recorded in the documentary, is that no one could really take care of him but me.
Gotcha.
But he wasn't going to even let me take care of him in the early stage. So it was the doctors who said, you're not going to be able to take care of him because he thinks you're the problem.
Okay.
I was his enemy. I wasn't his friend. And even today, he's bedridden, and he hit me with his legs. He can't move his hands, and none his hands done had surgery. We just and they were conformed. I just had surgery to have them open so we can clean them. He takes his knees and hit me, the workers, and all of that. What? And when he would do that, he would catch me in my stomach and my gut. And I said, Charles, who am I? I said, I'm Krystal, and he would say yes. I said, I'm your wife. He would say yes. I said, then why you do that?
Sure.
And then sometimes I found out that dementia patient or Charles don't like water. They don't like water. So I take the syringe and I squirt him with water. Every time you kick me in the stomach, I'm gonna squirt you with water. And he said, why you do that? I said, because you kicked me in my stomach.
Right.
So you learn to work with them. But no matter what, I'm gonna clean you up. Sure. I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna take care of you because you're not always like that, And so, but in a nursing home or facilities, staff don't have that compassion and love for you. Right. And so when last year, when I went for 2 weeks to take a respite, a break, in the first 5 days, my husband was full of wounds. They didn't take care of him. And they called me. They had to send him to wound care because they weren't going to tolerate that. He was combative.
I get it.
So, but I knew that I was the one that God called to take care of him. So even when you were telling me months back, you were like, well, Krystal, you know, he don't have to be like that. You know, you can pray. I'm like, no, we all right. he can remain. Jesus told John to remain. Charles can remain, you know. So,
Right. I get it.
He's
Hey.
good. And
Right.
he's loved on all the time.
Yeah, sure.
He can remain. For the safety of all that is involved.
For the safety of everybody involved.
Everybody involved.
Everybody.
Love it.
Like it.
Yeah, even the workers, even the nurses.
Sure.
He don't have no respect for the nurse.
Equal opportunity.
I was about to say equal opportunity.
But
man.
Charles.
Krystal, so does your son have any dealings with your husband as far as helping you out with your dad in his care?
He you know, during the pandemic, I could not get rails. I couldn't order rails. It was hard getting certain supplies in. So because he had tried to get up, he fell on the floor. My son stayed up with my husband through the night so I could sleep.
Wow.
He did that.
Wow.
He did that multiple nights back to back to back to back so that I could get sleep because he knew I was working. Because during the pandemic, we went through multiple staff, you know, during that time. You know, one time my husband got pandemic, he didn't have the signs, and one of the staff didn't want to take a test. She was working at Paris Island, and I said, well, then you know what? I can't use you if you're not willing to go take the test to see if you're the one who gave it to him. All of us took tests, we don't have it.
Wow,
you know, so my son stayed up, you know, and when I was here in the middle of the night by myself, I said, okay, Caleb, you got to help me lift him up. You know, Caleb, you got to help me get him off the floor because he'd be on the floor. You know, we got to help. And Charles was like 189 pounds, 200 pounds. And so my young son at the time, like 12, he's 13 now, helping me get him off the floor. We're trying to figure out how to get him back in the bed. And a couple of times I've had to call 911 and say, you know what, Caleb, we ain't gonna be able to do this one. We're gonna have to call 911, you know, and let them do it. But a couple of times, you know, and I called, and he would say, Mom, where's your workers at? And I said, Caleb, it's in the midnight hour. Daddy need us right now. Sure. You know, and we got to do what we got to do right now.
Right now.
And so, yeah, but he loves his dad, you know, and so he'll come in and help, and he loves me. He gives me a hard time, but he loves me. You know, he wants me to eat healthy. He wants me to be a vegetarian like he is, and you know, all that stuff. So
I get it. And so now Caleb is he's an honor roll student, right? And does he play what instrument does he play?
Caleb plays several instruments. He can play some piano. Caleb plays the trumpet real good. He takes lessons for that. He plays the mellophone for the high school band, even though he's in 8th grade. He plays the French horn. He plays the trombone. He plays the soprano trombone, and so he plays several instruments. He's brass instruments.
Gotcha.
And so his dad played the brass instrument, one of the brass instruments. So he always reminded me, Mom, Dad played the brass instrument. You didn't play no instrument, Mama. You know. So he is, and this is the second quarter, and the lowest grade he has is a 95.
Wow.
And I had a teacher call me 2 days ago, and his ELA teacher, and she says, you know what, I normally don't make this phone call. She says, but I'm glad to tell you, Caleb is such an awesome student in my class. And she just called to tell me that. So I was like, thank you, you know. And he's the president of a Junior Honor Society. He's the he shares president with another student of the the school president for. He does multiple things, and God has allowed him to. He told me the other day. He says, "Mom, he's in a play coming up on the 3rd of December. He's in the Gullah Kinfolk Christmas play at USCB. He says, Mom, I got too much on my plate. I don't have time to do the play. But I need to say I got to do the play, you know." and And he says, Mom, you know what? You think A's come out of the sky? I have to work for those A's. I don't have time for this play. Won't you tell Anita? And I said, you tell Anita. He said, okay. So he got Anita on the phone, and Anita said, you're 13 years old. You don't make decisions for yourself. I'm making them for you. And don't bother your mother.
Right. Wow.
So he's
13
funny.
years old. That's
13. Wow.
He's
That's good.
funny. He's
That's
funny.
amazing.
And he's a joy. I love
good.
taking care of him.
Mhm.
I love taking care of my husband.
Sure.
Because, my husband don't remember my name now.
Okay.
And because of my consistency, he remembers my face because he just stares at me.
Okay.
And so I asked him every morning, I said, Charles, what's my name? And one time he said, Big Time. So he calls me different names, and he calls me, and I said, no, Krystal, am I your wife? He said, and he'll shake his head, yes.
Yeah.
And so one morning he said my name, he said, Krystal, and I just started rejoicing.
There you
And
go.
I said, Caleb, your daddy called my name. He said, Mama, he should call your name. You tell him every morning. So we, my husband used to love dancing, and he still moves around in the bed. So I dance for him. So we have fun as a family.
That's
Every family has its own dynamics. You have to find what works for your family.
Right.
And so, I played the gospel music at night. I put on TBN. I dance for him. Because my husband was a man who loved dancing. And so I dance for him. And he just looks and he smiles. And so that's good enough for me at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you guys have a documentary that is being made in honor of your husband. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, they started filming us about 9 years ago. Caleb was about 4, and it actually, I met a group of people who came down to film Bella and the Culture at my church I was at. And so I told them about my sister-in-law, who is a performer. I'm Pearly Sue, Anita Piper. And so in telling them about her, she told them about my husband. And so when they met my husband and interviewed him a few times, because they came from Kenya College out of Ohio, they thought his story was worth telling. So they, in return, went back to Kenya College where they were teaching, they were professors, and they told Reggie Davis, who was one of the professors that was teaching film, about Charles, and they brought him back down the next summer, and he took on the project. And from there, he followed us around. We've been to Chicago multiple times, to Nashville, Kentucky, Philadelphia. Chris has traveled to New York. He's traveled to Florida because we have a daughter in New York. My husband has a daughter, and some people say stepkids, but she's just my daughter, and she's only 6 years younger than me. So, but she's just my daughter, and we have 2 grandkids, and so he went there to interview her, and they've been following us around for the last 9 years, talking about the dynamics of being living with dementia, and how love, faith, family plays a part in all of that.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow.
So how are the viewers, if they want to support that documentary, how are they able to support you guys in that effort?
Well, the documentary will be out in 2022 of spring. So the way to support it is to watch it, to look when it comes on Hulu, when it comes on Netflix, punch it, and watch it. And you'll be inspired. I've sent trailers out to people and Caleb actually do the narrating of a lot of it.
Nice.
When he was little, when he was little, he do a lot of the narrating of a lot of it. And just watch it. The beginning, like the beginning of the summer, I contacted Chris because it had been about 9 years, you know. And I said, Chris, hey, when is it coming out? You know, and Chris said, you know, because we all hit bumps in life, you know, we go through divorces, go through different things that will slow us up in our process. And Chris says, you know what, we need about 30,000 to finish. And I said, okay. And so our anniversary, me and my husband's anniversary is June 3rd. So I hired a film person to record our anniversary, you know, and to do a little snippet so I could put it out so people could donate to the South Documentary Fund, which is in North Carolina, which is where the film goes under. And I did that, and just out of faith, and so I put that out on Facebook, and I think it ended up raising about $900, but we need 30,000. And Chris said, well, it's a start, you know. And I said, cool. Well, in the midst of helping my nephew to get a contract to do t-shirts for the school that Caleb goes to, my sister-in-law, my two sister-in-law was there celebrating one of them's birthday. So I went over to sit with them to have breakfast after I met with him and the other lady. And my sister-in-law saw Ron, which is the director, president of the film festival in Beaufort. And so she introduced me to him. She mentioned about my husband and the documentary. I took their card. He said, send me an email. I sent him an email, sent it to Chris, the director. And he started emailing me, asking me questions. And so now he's funding the rest of the money.
Wow.
And so the film, he let me know about a couple of weeks ago that it'll be completed spring of 2022. So at this point, I didn't have to sell my land, but I was willing to do that. I put my land up for sale, out of faith, wanting it to come to pass, because I wanted my husband's story told. You know, it started out, 9 years ago, it started out me wanting to retain his memory for Caleb. But God has did much more. He put Chris and other people in our lives that, came from other states. God did it, and now it's going to be a documentary. Not everyone gets to tell their story in that manner. But and to have people to partner up with you, and like I said, we've traveled the world, Chicago, everywhere, just filming. Wherever we went, Chris followed. I would just say, hey, Chris, we're going to be here. Chris says, I'll meet you there, and he would be there,
So Krystal, tell us real quick, what's the name of the documentary?
It's called Contender. He was bouncing between Contenders and Contender. Contender is C-A, it's a Gullah name. So instead of just E-R, it's A-H on the end, because he wants to talk about the Gullah culture, which is the culture my husband came from here in Beaufort, South Carolina.
Okay. And if you all if you feel led to support the documentary series, what we'll do is we'll put a link in the description box
where they can donate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to the southdocumentary.com. Yeah, they can still donate, because that is a documentary in North Carolina, and they have other films and stuff that comes out, and so often than not, African American films are not supported at a high level when it's just local stories such as but those stories are worthy to be told because it can give hope to people. I've shared the bits and pieces with people, and they walk away with tears, and I'm just like, I've lived it, but to see the effect it has on people, because dementia is, like I said, 30 million people in the U.S. are being affected by it every year. 30 million is not just a little number, every year.
Say that again, Krystal, for those listening. Say how many people are affected by this?
3 million US cases per year. Per year.
Okay.
3 million.
3
and
million.
those are reported cases, 3 million US. Because remember, Charles, it wasn't until 2008 that I knew something was wrong. But Charles told me that he was losing his memory shortly after the car wreck.
Mm.
So I found out that people can have an onset with one injury. They can have an onset dementia. And you don't have to be 80 years old or 70 years old. You can be in your 50s. You can be in your 40s. You can have brain trauma that will cause mental health.
Okay. Wow.
And so a lot of the homeless people are suffering from mental health. That's why they're homeless, in a lot of cases. So mental health affects a lot of people in different ways.
Right. But Krystal, we just want to let you know that we're glad and happy that you decided to join us today and talk about this, because we, here at Kingdom Mandate Ministries, we think and believe that ministry has to be more than just, us talking about a thing, but we actually have to do something about what we're talking about, provide the resources, provide the facts, the data, and give people a better understanding, give them hope, and provide the necessary resources to go to the next step without being, having that element of fear or worry or stress, trying to figure out how to do it on your own, because you don't have to do it on your own, but you do need people around you who know, and they're willing to be patient with you and help you through that process. So, we definitely want to thank you for taking this time out to share your story with us, because many people need to hear it. Many people need to know about it, and we're going to do our level best to promote not only the documentary, but those who are needing help when it comes to mental health. So we're definitely, we have you back 100%, and this is what we're going to do. This is our mission, to promote this message and promote the message of the kingdom, and everything that the kingdom provides. So definitely, Krystal, we want to, thank you for this time.
Yes, thank you.
For those of you who are watching this channel for the first time, if you enjoyed this content, if you found it useful, if you found some kind of value in it, we would love for you to become a subscriber by clicking the subscribe button in the right-hand corner of your screen. If you feel led to donate to Kingdom Mandate Ministries, we do have a mental health awareness initiative, and you can go to www.kingdommandateministries.com and click donate, and walk through the process. It's very, very easy. We really, really appreciate your donations.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing, Krystal.
You're welcome.
Very touching story. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes. This is the Kingdom Mandate Podcast. I'm Pastor Derrick Turner.
I'm Pastor Reggie Davis.
And I'm Minister Andrea Cummings.
And Mrs. Krystal Singleton, thank you so much again for spending some time with us today.
You're welcome.
And until next time, you all be blessed.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in to the Kingdom Mandate Podcast. Join us again next week as we continue to seek His kingdom. To support Kingdom Mandate Ministries, visit our website at kingdommandateministries.com and click donate. Your generosity is greatly appreciated. Until next week, we pray that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. God bless.